Hey guys, we're going to be learning today about how to use the actual quadratic formula all the way through. Before we do that, make sure you do have a piece of paper ready to go for our notes today. And we're going to do some review on the stuff we've learned about factoring. So um, I would like you to pause the video and complete these four problems. All right. The one big difference between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 is simply this. Okay? 3 and 4, they have equal signs. Okay? So on 3 and 4, we're going to be able to use that shortcut, the magic number shortcut. On 1 and 2, you actually have to factor it. So let's go ahead and do 1. Nothing to divide out. Magic numbers here. So this would be multiplies to be 40, adds up to be 13. My magic numbers here are 5 and 8. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 plus 8 is 13. Okay, so I'm going to put the wings out. Now, reminder, we start with this without the exponent of 2. So I go 2x is at the beginning of both of them. And then these numbers make up the second part. So 2x plus 5 and 2x plus 8. Put down your tires. So on this first one, I can divide out in 1. Second one, I can divide out at 2. Remember, the 2 tires should multiply to be 2. And they do. 1 times 2 is 2. So I can go ahead and divide these out. So I'm going to get 2x plus 5 still. My second one, when I divide both of these by 2, I'm going to get x plus 4. And these would be my 2 factors. And I'm done. There's no equal sign I cannot solve. I can just factor. Number 2 here. Let's get our magic numbers. Multiplies to be negative 90. Adds up to be negative 27. Okay, so I'm actually going to go through the process here because I haven't done that in a while. So remember, when you're unsure, start with 1 in the number. So 1 times negative 90. Now, if I check the addition, that adds up to, so I think I accidentally zoomed a little bit there. Didn't mean to. That adds up to negative 89, so that's not it. 2. Okay, we got to figure out what goes with 2 here. So negative 90 divided by 2 is negative 45. So 2 times negative 45 is negative 90. 2 plus negative 45, that's negative 43. Not it. Next number is 3. Negative 90 divided by 3 is negative 30. So those multiply, and those add up. So there it is, the 2 numbers I was looking for. Okay. Put your wings out. And remember, you're putting this down, but without the 2. So it'd be 9R, 9R. And then we put our magic numbers in the other spots. Looking for what we can divide out. For this first one, I can divide both of those by 3. And then the second one, I can divide both of those by 3. And my tires work out. 3 times 3, that is 9. So I'm good. I just got to divide it out. When I divide the first one by 3, that's going to leave me with 3R plus 1. When I divide the second one by 3, that's going to leave me with 3R minus 10. Okay, and there's my factors. Now for 3 and 4, since we are solving, we can use that little shortcut that we learned about. So make sure it's equal to 0. So the first one's good. Let's get our magic numbers here. So multiplies to be 35, adds up to be negative 12. Magic numbers are negative 5 and negative 7. And I can do the shortcut. Remember, take the opposite of this, divide it by my a value. In this one, the a value was 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. So there's one answer. Okay. And opposite of negative 7 is 7 divided by the a value. Oh, and that's it. So these would be my 2 answers. For number 4, we're going to have to make this equal to 0 first. So minus 14x on both sides. That's 0. So I get 5x squared minus 14x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, well, let's get our magic numbers. Multiplies to be negative 15, adds up to be negative 14, and it's actually 1 in the number. 1 times negative 15. So again, opposite divided by the a value. Opposite divided by the a value. And I have my two answers right away. Okay. Let's do one more quick set for what we did last week. Is let's go ahead and figure out how many solutions, I should say real solutions, we have for both of these using the discriminant. I'm going to put the discriminant part of the quadratic formula up here for you to see. We're doing that part of it. Okay, so go ahead, pause video, and do those two. Okay, for this first one, A is 8, B is 6, C is 5. It's already equal to 0, so that part's good. So I would have B 6 squared minus 4 times 8 times 5. 6 squared is 36. And then we have negative 4 times 8 times 5. And that's going to be negative 160. Okay. I add these together, or I subtract them, 36 minus 160, I get negative 124. Since this is a negative, that means I have no real solutions. Okay. For number 6, we got to make it equal to 0 first. So I have 10n squared minus 7n minus 20 equals 0. Okay. And now we can do the discriminant here. So the b value is negative 7, so I have negative 7 squared. We have minus 4 times a, which is 10, times c, which is negative 20. Now, when I was looking at some of your homework, this was a problem spot. Negative 7 squared. When you use a calculator, you have to put that negative 7 in parentheses. Okay, you are going to get a positive answer for this b squared part every single time. Okay, and then I multiply these three. So it'd be negative 4 times 10 times negative 20. And I get a positive 800, so I put plus 800. Some of us were making mistakes with that part. Add these up, and I get 849. Okay, it's a positive answer, so I know I'm going to have two real solutions. Okay. Now, that's all review. Let's get into the new stuff. Today, my young grasshoppers, we are going to be using the wonderful quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. And it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a over 2a over 2a. Oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. You guys are lucky we're not in school because I would be going crazy with this song. But here it is. The variable. So if we have this, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Remember, it has to be equal to 0. Okay, we would say our x is, and then negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, now the nice thing, this is what we worked on doing last week, and that is a big part of the quadratic formula. We're going to go ahead and always do decimals. We're going to round to the 100th. Okay, that's only if it doesn't come out perfectly. We'll round to the 100th. Okay, what you're going to see in terms of how I take care of this is, one, I'm going to do the square root part. the discriminant. And I'm going to go ahead and square root it and get an answer for it. Okay. Then I'm going to break the plus or minus sign into two different fractions. Okay. So that's where this sign comes into play. That is signifying the possibility of two answers. So I'm going to break it up into two different fractions, and then you're just going to do PEMDAS. Okay. Oops. Not PEMDAS. PEMDAS. Okay. Finish it off. Do your order of operations. Okay. So let's look at this first problem. Okay. Now, again, remember, you have to make sure it's set equal to 0. So before I do anything, I have to move this 10R. So minus 10R on both sides. And then I've got to get everything organized. So I have 3R squared minus 10R minus 13 equals 0. I'm going to put the quadratic formula up here. Okay. Now, A is 10. Sorry, excuse me. A is 3. B is negative 10. C is negative 13. Okay. So let's go ahead and fill this in. So it says negative B. So I have negative, and then my B value, negative 10, plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C. And this is all over 2A. Okay. Now, we got to take care of the square root part. So we're going to focus on, oops, wrong thing. Thought it was on my marker. We're going to do this part. Okay, we're going to go ahead and square root it and get our answer for it. So I'm going to do this down here. Negative 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 13. So negative 10 squared, negative 10 times negative 10 is 100. Negative 4 times 3 times 13 is 156. I add these up, and I get 256. And the square root of 256 is 16. Now, understand, once I got to here, I should know I have two solutions. That's what the discriminant is. Okay, but I'm going to square root it. I get 16. Okay, and then I'm going to split the problem up. There's two problems here. Now, let's go ahead and simplify some things in the process. Negative of negative 10, that's positive 10. We're just going to use the plus sign. And we're going to leave some space here for our discriminant answer. That's where that goes. That was that highlighted part. Well, I just got a 16. And then let's go ahead and do the 2 times 3. That's 6. So that's one of the problems, one of the fractions that we're going to deal with. And we're going to do the same thing over here. 10 minus 16 divided by 6. Okay. So all I did is I took this and I used the plus sign one time. I used the minus sign the second time. Okay. And we go ahead and do it. 10 plus 16 is 23. 23 divided by 6. Remember, we're rounding to the 100th. Is going to be approximately 3.83. 10 minus 16 is negative 6 divided by 6, and that's going to be negative 1. And there's my two solutions I get. Okay. All right, let's look at another one. Let's look at number 2. Again, we're using the quadratic formula. I'll go ahead and write that up here. And I look at the problem, it is not set equal to 0. So let's make it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 7x to both sides. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I'm going to get 8x squared plus 7x plus 1 equals 0. That's what I want. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and plug things in. I have -7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So 8. And I'm just filling in the numbers. Okay. Let's do the discriminant part. So square root. See, 7 squared from over here. 7 squared is 49. Remember, multiply these three. So -4 times 8 times 1 is -32. 49 minus 32 is 17. So I get a positive number there. So I do have a two solutions. That's what that tells me when I get a positive square root. Let's go ahead and square root it. Square root of 17. It's going to be rounded. Okay. It's not perfect. It is going to be rounded to 4.12. Okay. And now we're going to split this up. Okay, let's go ahead and simplify as we go. Negative of 7 is -7. We're going to use the plus sign. And then remember, my discriminant, what I did here, goes in this spot. That's the answer for the whole square root part. So I'm just going to put that after it, 4.12. And then I'm going to go ahead and simplify that. 2 times 8 is 16. There's one of them. For the other one, I just put a minus sign here instead. 4.12 divided by 16. Now, I did not emphasize on the last one, but I need to emphasize this here. You have to add these up first. Okay? You actually have to add those up because order of operation says that has to be done first. It's all on the top of the fraction. If you're trying to type it all of it into your calculator, you better put parentheses around it the way your calculator adds or subtracts first. I just do it one at a time. So -7 plus 4.12. I'm getting -2.88 divided by 16. And for this first one, I get about -0.18. There's one solution. Okay. For this one, I subtract -7 minus 4.12. I get -11.12 divided by 16. I get -0. And this decimal I'm getting is, it says -0.695. Remember, we're rounding to the 100th. So 5 or more raise the score. So I go from 0.69 to 0.70. Okay. And those would be my two solutions. All right. If you're feeling comfortable, go ahead and try this one on your own. If you're not, just follow along with me. If you want to try on your own, just pause the video. So we got here 7b squared plus 5b equals 23. So again, got to make it say equals 0. So -23 on both sides. That's 0. And I have 7b squared plus 5b minus 23 equals 0. Okay. Well, a is 7. B is 5. C is -23. And we're going to plug things into the quadratic formula. Okay, so -b. So I got -5 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. And I'm just plugging in the numbers as I do that. Okay. Remember, we're going to take care of the discriminant, this part, right now. Okay. And I like to do it off to the side. Doesn't mean you have to, but I like to do it off to the side, just like we were doing it before. So I got 5 squared is 25. And then we have negative 4 times 7 times negative 23. I get positive 644. Add those up. And I get square root of 669. Go ahead and square root that. I am going to get 2 solutions. And I'm getting 25.87 when I round. Okay. So this number is what goes in the place of the square root sign. So let's go ahead and split this up. Negative of 5 is negative 5 plus 25.87 divided by, and then 2 times 7 here is 14. The other one, I have negative 5. This time we use the minus sign, minus 25.87 divided by 14. Okay, remember to add them up first. So negative 5 plus 25.87 is 20.87 divided by 14. And I'm getting approximately 1.49. For the second one, negative 5 minus 25.87 is negative 30.87 divided by 14. And for that one, I'm getting approximately negative 2.21 when I round it. And those would be my 2 answers. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. All right, last one here. Got to make it say equal to 0. So minus 12m on both sides, plus 10 on both sides. So I end up with 6m squared minus 12m plus 10 equals 0. Okay. And let's go ahead and plug this into the quadratic formula. Okay. So we got A is 6, B is negative 12, C is 10. So negative of negative 12, because B is negative 12, plus or minus square root of negative 12 squared minus 4 times 6 times 10. This is all over 2 times 6. Okay. Now, remember, we always do this part first. And really the big reason for making sure we take care of that is it's going to let you know how many solutions you have. Okay, so negative 12 squared off to the side here, that's 144. Negative 4 times 6 times 10, negative 4 times 6 times 10, that's negative 240. Well, I got to subtract these. 144 minus 240, and I get negative 96. Well, guys, remember, that's a problem. That is a major problem. We cannot square root. If we get a negative number right there, I can't square root it. Okay? So this would be no real solutions. And you are done with the problem. You do not go any further. If this number ends up being a negative, you're discriminant, you don't have any solutions. You don't need to keep going. Okay? So that's the one time that it becomes very important that we are doing that discriminant. All you have left here today is we have our worksheet that is on Cami. Um, I believe I made sure that I shared the answers with it, especially because this one gets a little trickier. Um, so make sure you are showing all of your work. Okay, use that to kind of know whether or not you are doing them correctly. There will be a Google Meet that we can do. So make sure that you pop in if you are unsure about this. This is something that will not go away in math. You're going to be using this um, throughout Algebra 2, throughout some of geometry. Okay. Also, make sure you don't forget to attach a picture of your notes on Google Classroom and then click the turn in button, y'all. You guys have a great week. We will hopefully see you soon.